What's up, Project Cars 2 fans? David Land here, and now we get into the modern era of the Rolex 24 and our videos in Project Cars 2 leading up to the running of the Rolex 24. Today we are going to start a series of 3 videos documenting the 3 classes of competition in this year's Rolex 24. LMP2 or DPI or Prototype, whatever you want to call it, GTE or GTLM, whatever you want to call it, and this class of cars that we're going to be taking a look at today, GT3 or GTD. The D stands for Daytona, but the class is run to global GT3 regulations. The car is a Rolex 24 veteran. This is the Stevenson Motorsports Audi R8. It is a beautiful car, V10 engine. Unfortunately, the team just recently dissolved because the owner actually passed away. So kind of to run a bit of a tribute to the Stevenson racing team, and because it's a pretty damn good looking car, let's be honest. We are going to do a 25-minute simulation 24-hour race, and if you can notice, I think you've noticed by now, it's a little wet out there. The reason it's wet is because, for whatever reason, the GT3 cars still give my Logitech G920 wheel a bit of trouble. Even at low AI, which I run at 15 generally on the Xbox One, that's about as many as it can handle without the physics glitching out a bit. But even with the GT3 cars, and I tried this with multiple ones like the M6 BMW and the Acura NSX as well, for whatever reason, I get some wheel popping, and it gets a little bit funny on the banking. But I found the solution, a workaround to that, is if you get some wheel popping, just throw some water out on the track, and suddenly your force feedback is just fine. So, this weather is going to really play into make a very interesting race. You may notice that there are 3 cars running very closely together here, and they're the cars representing the 3 classes of competition. We got a GTE Ford GT being chased by an LMP2 Oreca, and then my Audi R8. And all 3 of those cars are very closely matched because of the weather. And I suspect that that's the way it's going to be for 25 minutes. Can a GTE car win? Very possibly. Can a GTD car win? That would be spectacular, but if it happens, I hope it's me. There's probably going to be some wacky, wild things happening at Daytona in 25 minutes. Let's find out how it's going to turn out. So here we come down for the green flag at Daytona. Eagle-eyed viewers may notice that this grid's a little bit different than the one I showed in the intro. The reason for that is because I stupidly exited out of the race somehow after choosing my racing setup. So we're underway here at Daytona. Got the Falcon Tires Porsche GT3 next to me. I actually simulated qualifying. I'd actually qualified second in GTD for this race, but we're going to be starting from the back. I guess I'll penalize myself, or I guess give myself a post-qualifying penalty for breaking parc ferme and leaving the session, as I got very close to that Porsche. I think we're into the lead in the class. Oh, no, we're not. The Mercedes got around me there, and it is very wet here on the back straightaway. A lot of spray in my face as we head into the very, very difficult kink, and that is a bugaboo corner in the wet, as we found out in the Continental race. And now we're in the big dog race, and it is going to be even tougher. So there's a lot of puddles that form on the outside of this corner as we're going to outbrake the Mercedes and move up into the class lead on lap 1. Der Raidmeister. Okay, now we've got to see if we can get around a few GTE cars. What's going to be interesting as well is some of the prototypes are not nearly as fast as other of the prototypes. In fact, some of the backmarker prototypes, which I know there's a couple in this race as we make it past one of the GTE Aston Martins, are actually as slow as the GTD cars around Daytona for whatever reason, and I outbraked myself going into the chicane. We'll hang on to it. That probably would have ripped my splitter off in real life, but thankfully there are some realistic liberties taken in Project Cars 2, and that did not rip my splitter off. So we're moving up quite nicely here. We're actually coming up behind the Corvette Racing number 4, actually official IMSA livery. as we're going to work to the inside of him here on the tri-oval, pass him, and really start to move up through the field, which is nice. That's what we need to be doing. AI are on 120%. Oh, but as you may be aware, Project Cars 2 AI just not quite got the rain pace. I don't blame them. I mean, they're serviceable. They're certainly not Gran Turismo levels of bad. That is for certain sure. But they could be faster in the rain, no doubt about it. Or maybe I just have Michelin rain tires and everybody else has got Continentals. That is also a possibility. Hashtag Petit Le Mans 2015. Anybody? Get down to second gear. The second horseshoe, kind of have to crawl around that corner. Otherwise, you kind of slide off there. There's not a lot of grip there in the dry, much less in the wet. And I aquaplane just a little bit, coming into the last corner onto the banking, and we'll cowboy it out onto the banking as the sun's already starting to set. There's going to be various levels of rain during this race. It's going to go from heavy to light to heavy. There's going to be fog in the night and early morning. So this is going to be a bit of a treacherous race. And I like to do this to myself because the GT3 cars are generally pretty easy to drive. And adding water definitely makes that a lot different. As we catch a puddle there, there's a nasty, nasty puddle that usually forms right there. And I'm kind of disheartened that it's already forming there in the chicane. It definitely affects your lap time, your ability, at least my ability, if you've seen some of these other Rolex 24 videos, just to attack that chicane and really make up a lot of time. Ain't going to happen in this race, unfortunately. So we're going to have to make up our time elsewhere. I've really got this car trimmed out. My default Daytona setup. Oh, as one of the Corvettes just plowed into the pit lane barrier. That was a fail. That was definitely a Corvette racing thing to do, though. They always seem to have something stupid happen to them in the endurance races, and there you go. Now we're behind the Aston Martin. That friggin' Ferris wheel looks beautiful at this time of night. And in the rain, for whatever reason, it pops more in the rain at night. Ooh, God almighty, that was almost a very, very serious crash. I was talking about my default Daytona settings, wasn't I? 0 on the front wing, 2 on the rear. That's generally my downforce settings I run. I like a car with the rear end planted. I really like to stab the throttle a lot. You can't really have a loose rear end when you do that. But I always like running with low downforce. Pretty much every racing game, I try to find a car that I can drive with the least amount of downforce. Because it always seems like everybody in video games always chooses the cars with the most power. So you're always struggling on the straightaways to catch up with them. Especially, this was something I learned in Forza 4, racing online there. And I always tried to find cars that had a ton of downforce and a lot of grip in the corners, but also you could run them with significantly less downforce than they actually had, but still be able to outpace everybody in the corners and not just lose a ton of time on the straightaways. That was always my goals in Forza, and it's kind of carried over to Gran Turismo 6 and now Project Cars, where I've done the majority of my racing. We get down here into turn 1, still ahead of the GTE Corvette. Those cars actually started on the GTE front row, so they definitely got balked on the start. One of them is in an IMSA livery and the other one is in the Le Mans livery. So, GG Corvette, way to sync your liveries up, boys. And we're going to work through the treacherous kink. And here comes the GTLM Corvette down the inside. Couldn't quite get there. We'll work off the second horseshoe. I'm definitely going to stay close to the inside curve here, because there's those big puddles out on the edge of the course out there to the right side. And touching those things, you are going spinning. There's no doubt about it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. You're going around. So out back on the banking, probably the rain's starting to lighten up here. I set the weather to be heavy rain, light rain, rain with fog, and then light rain to end the race. And here comes the GTLM Corvette. He finally asserts his dominance over me. We'll try to stay ahead of GTD, at least for now. Ooh, as we get through the puddle. Is that the Mercedes behind me? Let me take a look here as we get on the banking. No. Oh, yeah, it's a GTE Aston Martin. That's right, I'm around 2 of the GTE cars. Well, that's good. It's good to have some traffic to kind of keep my classmates at bay. And we are definitely hunting down the Corvette here. So for whatever reason, we didn't have the straight line speed heading into the bus stop. But we certainly did coming out of the bus stop. Very interesting. On the throttle. Flip the curbs. But don't ride them too much. I find in a car with traction control, which these GT3 cars have traction control and ABS. If you clip that curb too much, it'll set the traction control off because it'll think the car is upset when you clip a curb too hard. And the traction control will kick in real hard. And you lose a ton of time. Because, of course, traction control is essentially a computer that turns the engine off so that there isn't wheel spin generated. Kind of interesting, fascinating technology. But sometimes it can be a pain in the butt. So we get back here out onto the banking, chasing down these 2 GTLM Corvettes. The factory Corvettes, I should say. Velocity yellow is the color. And I love how this Audi R10 sounds. It sounds almost like an old Renault Formula 1 car. Renault engine Formula 1 car, I should say. Back in the early V10 eras, like Jacques Villeneuve and Damon Hill would drive. It's got that nice growl. It's got a scream, but it's a growly scream. It's kind of not like the, probably the V10 F1 cars you're thinking of, like the Ferrari, the 2005 Ferrari and stuff like that. It's got more of that growl that the Renault Williams had, like in 95 and 96, kind of the early years of the dominance of the V10 engines in F1. And here we go. Side-by-side racing with the Corvettes. Or the Corvettes are racing side-by-side. I'm just kind of following them. And that is the Corvette that was damaged in that contact in Turn 1, getting passed by the IMSA version. Going to try to work around. Got to be very careful here. Again, while we are racing for overall position here, we really don't have to pass them. It's not that important to take whatever this is, 10th in overall. Oh, it was the Aston. The Aston almost hit me. Holy smokes. What was that Aston thinking? He just about ran me over going into the horseshoe. I would have a stern talking with that driver after the race in the pit lane for that crap. Back out onto the banking, past the Daytona sign. Chasing down these 2 Corvettes. The rain is really lightened up here in the last few laps. I kind of hope that does something about the puddles, but somehow I'm suspecting it won't. Going down to the bus stop, that time you really got that F1 sound. As I rev the engine up quite a bit, downshifting. I probably should have gotten into 3rd gear though, but I'm a little bit cautious, a little bit timid in the bus stop when it's raining. You never know if you're just going to downshift a little too early, unload the rear end, and spin around like a top. So here we go. We are getting a good run on the Le Mans Corvette, and around the outside of him, he's actually got a headlight out. I just saw in the rearview mirror. You guys have probably been aware of that, assuming that the replay hasn't screwed up. in reporting. You've probably been aware of that for quite some time. But it's the first time I've been ahead of that particular car to see what it's packing. So IMSA needs to black flag that guy. He needs to come in and get a new nose clip, because that is dangerous to not have headlights when we're racing at night. And that was cutting way too close in the kink. I heard the splash of going on the other side of the curb and catching the grass there that's very, very wet. And hey, you know what? Now what's happening? So we're getting some fog. The good old-fashioned Daytona fog. If this was real life, we'd probably be getting a full course yellow for about 2 hours. Everybody would put in their NASCAR drivers, who kind of the requirement to run at least an hour in the race. You know, get that minimum drive time. Or I guess not just your NASCAR drivers. I'm being unfair to the NASCAR drivers. Get your like get your AM drivers in. Get your gentleman drivers in for a couple of full course yellow fog hours. Using third gear this time. Just getting that. There's really nothing you can do. That puddle goes all the way across the exit of the bus stop. And you just pretty much have to straighten your car out through it and just hope that you don't lose the rear end. We're still holding out in front of this Le Mans Corvette. The GTLM Corvette is gone. He's just a little red speck in the distance. He looks like an X-Wing fighter in Star Wars way up there. You know, like when the X-Wings go to hyperspace, that's what it kind of looks like. So we're going to work down here in turn 1, brake early. Not about losing this GTD lead in the middle of the night in the fog. But we still got that 2-car advantage over the GTD leader. That's what we need to be doing. Just going to get it nice and easy through the horseshoe. And this is not going to be fun in the fog, this friggin' kink. Find your apex, David. Thank you. You found it. Good job. I get a cookie for that. Oops, we lock the rears just a little bit going in to the second horseshoe. But we're okay. Do not go out wide, David. Do not go out wide. You know there's going to be puddles forming there now, especially because the rain is going to be heavier with the fog, because of course there's clouds when it's fog. It's very, very cloudy. And up onto the banking. Not really pulling away from that Corvette or the Aston, but we do have a healthy margin over the GTD cars, so that makes me happy. Oh, I missed my apex.
10 minutes remaining.
I missed it. I missed the entry to the corner. I didn't see where it was. Now off across the grass we go. Oh, they're side by side behind me. GTE cars. There was literally so much fog down there that I just completely missed where I was supposed to go. Completely missed it. That was a stupid mistake. The problem is as well, it's not like the AI can't see. They're computers. They're following a path, you know. I don't know if you could ever program an AI to actually have sight. I suppose you could, in the Orwellian 1984 era that we live in. But at the moment, we don't have that technology in Project Cars 2. I'm sure the NSA has it. As we get on the throttle here, the Aston has cleared the Le Mans, the wounded Le Mans Corvette. And the sun's starting to rise. Hopefully it'll burn this fog out. Oh, it's the Aston was there again. What is that Aston's problem? Stop trying to pass me there. It's so stupid as I get out way too wide on the exit of the second horseshoe. Fog still terrible down here. Absolutely awful. As the new morn breaks at Daytona, sunrise just about to come. And God almighty, has this fog not been fun. The Aston staying right there behind the Corvette, as well as the Mercedes, which has been chasing me all through this race. Just got to keep that Aston behind me. Don't really want to deal with him if I don't have to. Those puddles are not making it easy. And now morning breaks here at Daytona. Fog still thick as pea soup. And that's P-E-A, the vegetable. Get your mind out of the gutter. So as we head down to Tri-Oval, well, we put some decent distance between ourselves and the GTE Aston Martin, which is good. It is a little bit froggy this morning. Ferris wheel's been running all night though. That's been good. They never lost power. And there's the sun. Oh, I've never been so happy to see the sun in my life. Oh, now I can start seeing apexes again, which is going to be nice. Woohoo! Little bit of a slide through there. Aston, stop it. He's being an Aston hole right now. And he's actually going to get to the inside of me. We're going to drag race down here into the final corner before the banking. Get it down. Catch that curbing on the inside. Get on the throttle. Trust that traction control and those Continental Rain tires. This car is running Continentals, by the way, not Michelin's. I lied earlier. All right. And onto the banking. Beautiful sunrise. Yeah, that was lovely. And we are pulling away from the Aston. So hopefully now that I can see the bus stop, I'll actually be able to run through there pretty decently. Down to fourth gear. Ooh, a little too much speed. A little too much speed, David. I actually had to get down to the second gear because I carried too much speed through there and then caught the puddle. And the puddle was like, oh, I'm going to slow you down. Hi. Don't know if the AI really get affected all that much by the puddles. It's tough to tell, to be perfectly honest with you. We're still staying ahead of that Aston. It's what we need to be doing. Through the Tri-Oval.
Okay, you've got good pace. It's time to turn it on a bit. Let's push a little harder.
Race engineer trying to give me some motivation. Even though we're leading this thing, I believe. So he clearly thinks we've got a little more in the bag for the overall standings, but who knows? Oh, that's me going too fast into the International Horseshoe and sliding out a wee bit. Boy, this track is so sloppy right now.
5 minutes to go.
I suppose it's been rained on. For the equivalent, don't you do that, Aston Martin. And I outbrake myself because I'm trying not to get rear-ended here. Side by side with the Aston, little bit of possible contact there. Again, that's going to be something you're going to see on the replay and I'm not going to really be aware of. Didn't feel any contact through the force feedback, but sometimes you just don't feel those sort of things. The sun has officially risen as we work through the banking. The sixth gear. Get that F1 style sound on the downshift. Find the puddle. Find the exit of the bus stop. There's actually puddles down there too on the left side if you get too low on the apron. So 4 minutes remaining, that's probably the equivalent of 3 laps. We'll see when the leader crosses the line the last time, whether or not we have 2 or 3 laps to go. Actually, that's a good question as well. I don't see any prototypes coming through the field yet. So I don't know if the P2 leaders are going to be lapping us in this short of a time frame. If I'd been smart, and I'm rarely smart, I might have put P1 cars in this race just to be able to have that prototype lapping as well. But when we do this race as a P2 car, which will be the last of the Rolex 24 videos, I'm thinking about doing a 1 hour race. Now, I don't know if the replay records for that long, and it might be a pain in the butt to record. It's certainly going to be a big file, but I'm thinking about doing an hour-long race at the end, and there'll be a lot of lapping in that race because of the fact that not only will there certainly be overlap in the GT3 and P2 times, but there will also be pit stops in that race. Pretty much every class of competition can't quite make it an hour. The latest I think you can go on a fuel tank is about 55 minutes. Full tanks. So that'll be fun. The pit stop, traffic, top class, Daytona, 24-hour night cycle, day-night cycle. Heck yeah. Of course, the next video is going to be GTLM or GTE. I've got a car in mind that I'm going to drive, but if the comment section somehow convinces me not to drive the car I'm thinking of, go for it. So write your GTLM or GTE desires down in the comments. I'll read them. I'll be intrigued by what you have to say or what your favorite GTE car is, and I'll make my considerations for the video based on that. Because I maybe braked a little too late, or maybe just a little bit too aggressively down into turn 1. The Corvette is gone. I just saw him on the other side of the horseshoe here. Hello. A little too much. Again, I'm taking too much brakes into the horseshoe suddenly. I think my tires are getting a little hot. A little hot under the collar. Trying to avoid the puddles there. No Aston Martin trying to stick it in on the inside there. 1 minute to go. So this will possibly be the last lap of the race. Possibly not. I'm not 100% sure. I remember the last, in the GTP race at least, they were like 1 minute to go, and then it was the last lap as well, and the engineer never told me. We got a big lead. We've got such a huge lead on the GTD field. It's unbelievable, because those are two GTE cars behind me. So GTD is gone. I managed to drive a pretty good race here. Of course, I may be speaking too soon, so let's just hold off on the accolades until we get through the chicane a couple more times. That was one of the possibly 2 more times we'll have to come through. We'll see when we cross the line here if it is the last lap or not. The GT Aston Martin or GTE Aston Martin is all over the back of me, so he's got a big run because I got a terrible run through the bus stop. So this is for overall positioning in the race. I'm not going to fight him too hard on it, to be honest with you, because, you know, screw dying and losing the GT3 win for racing an Aston Martin that's not even in my class. And there goes the Aston. He's around on the last lap. We might get him back, we might not. I'm not too concerned about it. We just got to hang on, coast to the victory, bring it home. This track is so wet right now, too. It's just, there's puddles everywhere. There's a big sheen on the track. You can just see it, at least from what I'm looking at. I don't know if necessarily after YouTube compression and exporting and all the compression that goes into a video, if you can see it. But there's just almost looks like there's a coat of ice on the track. And again, there's been as I caught a puddle there, there's been a simulated 24 hours of rain. It hasn't stopped raining for 24 hours in game, of course, not necessarily in real life, but you know, you'd assume there's 24 hours of water on this track right now. So white flag is out. This is the last lap, I would assume, unless the P2 cars are that much out in front that they somehow managed to do 2 laps in a minute. Through the chicane for the final time, the Le Mans Corvette, he's back there, but he's not too much of a threat. we are going to take a pretty excellent victory, if I do say so myself. And actually, the Falcon Tires Porsche has moved up to second in class, or third in class. So the back row Joes managed to have a pretty good race here as we come through the tri-oval for the final time, take victory in the GTD class at Daytona. So, not a real surprise. P2 cars, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the overall standings. A Corvette managed to win GTE over an Aston Martin, a Corvette and an Aston Martin. I placed 10th overall, which is a pretty excellent result for a GTD car. GTE car for the Corvette there. Second place was the Porsche. Third place was the Porsche. So the Porsches and Audis, German engineering, really, actually, in fact, all of the GT3 cars are German. Never mind. That was a good race. That was a good race. Congratulations to Jorg Valdick. So that was GTD racing in the rain for 24 hours, well, 24 minutes at Daytona. And look at that 3-wide action and prototype on the start. Woo-wee doggies. This was fun. If you enjoyed this, be sure to leave a like on the video, and also let me know your thoughts on my choice for GTLM racing and P2. I want to know what cars you think I should drive, what liveries you think I should drive. Again, I've got pretty much what I'm going to drive, but I'm interested to see if you guys come to the same conclusions that I have. So thank you guys so much for watching. This has been David Land on YouTube. We will see you for GTE action at Daytona.